Coming up next on Art Rocks, the Monroe brothers who are taking their distinctive Louisiana sensibility and adding a whole new sensory dimension.
It's exciting, it's fun, it's very creative, it's a different world.
A filmmaker shedding light on a world-renowned ballet company.
They're using the language of the human soul that's been inside bodies trying to communicate. Deep feelings.
Boston's Rose Kennedy Greenway is blooming and the art is soaring.
I think one of the biggest roles is actually to change the perceptions of the city in which we all live in.
A painter with a rare gift illuminates his canvases with light.
The light, the composition, the topography, or if it's a figure or portrait, the way the figures pose. But oftentimes the unifying theme is the light.
And a visit to the Biedenhahn Museum, which features some of the oldest Bibles in the world. That's all next on Art Rocks.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.
Hello and thank you for joining us for Art Rocks with me, James Fox Smith, publisher of Country Roads magazine. Twin brothers Doug and John Kennedy have been designing t-shirts featuring Doug's distinctive, fantastical take on rural Louisiana culture for decades. But with Mojo Magique, the Kennedy brothers have let their creative spirits lead the way into new sensory territory, creating and marketing unique Louisiana fragrances.
Most people in the northern part of Louisiana associate the name Mojos with t-shirts, many depicting Louisiana's rural, eccentric, Cajun meets country flair. Some of the t-shirts flaunt our love of native wildlife, others the supernatural spirits lurking beneath the surface. But Mojos is becoming more than a t-shirt company peddling quirky messages.
We're not going to get rid of doing t-shirts. We love doing it. But after 25 years, you have different thoughts, things evolve. Being an artistic company, you want to express yourself and you have different methods of doing it.
John and Doug's latest passion? Helping design and market fragrances that embody the magical charm of rural Louisiana.
Moving on into another realm, it's exciting, it's fun, it's very creative, it's a different world.
The Kennedy brothers are getting some expert help in distilling the essence of Louisiana.
We're using the best of the best. The best perfumers. They're working with everyone from Ralph Lauren to Victor and Rolf, Calvin Klein. And when you deal with that kind of level of those minds and noses, it's going to be good.
We're actually involved in the scent process as well. There are many back and forths between the fragrances that are being produced in New York or France. They FedEx them to us. We will have a row of quite a few fragrances that we smell of that same scent, different combinations of maybe a little more patchouli or a little more wood or a concentration that's higher than the others. And literally we're going back and forth, FedExing. It's saying, okay, this is too citrusy, bring that down. Or that we need this at a 12% combination instead of a 10, it needs to be a little more bold. We know what we like, and I think we have pretty good noses. We don't use focus groups like a lot of the large corporations do, and I believe that our fragrance shows that. When we finally come up with that scent that we love and absolutely feel that it's the right one, then we start producing.
Perfumers typically base themselves in major metropolitan areas like New York and Paris. But the Kennedys think they have an advantage in working in the relatively small city of Monroe, home to only about 50,000 people.
We travel a good bit, so we're exposed to cities in Europe, we're exposed to New York quite a bit, and to be able to be influenced on a small scale with what's out there in the world and bring it here and do something our own way, it's very fresh.
Once the Kennedy brothers agree on a scent, that's when Doug's design talents come to the fore.
I will smell it and I get an idea. It just comes out of anywhere, but it also, I take elements of the Louisiana and my own graphic sensibilities, and I illustrate that in our own Mojo kind of way, which is a style that we just developed through the years, and it just kind of flows out. And I do renderings in pencil, just old school. I don't really use the computer until I start doing the actual packaging. We come up with a little spot of color here that illustrates a color of the host scent.
When we're developing the feel and the look, the art that goes on the box, we are constantly, and I mean this, we're constantly smelling the fragrance and looking at the art. All the time. We will look at the package and we'll say, this is it, this is it, this is the way this should look.
So then we started thinking about bottle shapes and then the logo started coming out scrambled, like Mojo Magique. So all these drawings, different things. And then all of a sudden I hit this one where I'm like, I don't know where it came from, but it was taking the box and putting the logo on the corner. And then I thought, well, if I take that, I can do a complete illustration in the package. So here is the finished box, and it's embossed. So if you take this right here and you rotate it, it becomes one piece of art. And all these illustrate the different notes. We have orange, we have citrus, florals, wood, and all these are the kind of Louisiana magical, the ghost, the little voodoo guy, the cat, a crow, owls, frogs, ghosts, all that stuff makes up Magique. So this, all the boxes put together as a display make up the whole piece of art.
Doug went through the same processes when designing the packaging for their fragrances Seer, Mojo Belle, Voodoo Child, and Pixie Rose.
So the rose, we started smelling it, and we came up with this idea of fairies, like the romantic idea of fairy tales around rose bushes. So this is a sketchbook of some of the first ideas of Pixie Rose. This is the art that came out to be on the back. There's the front, just like the other one. All of them have art on the back through the fragrance. All four sides make up, just like Magique, one piece of art.
No matter where you roam in Louisiana, opportunities to connect with the arts are everywhere. The trick is knowing where to look. So here's a list of some of the cultural adventures coming up around the state in the week to come. To learn more about these and other events in Louisiana, visit lpb.org/artrocks or pick up a free copy of Country Roads magazine. LPB's Art Rocks website also features an archive of previous episodes, so to see any segment again, just log on to lpb.org. One of the world's preeminent ballet companies, the American Ballet Theatre, is celebrating its 79th anniversary. American Masters, in collaboration with filmmaker Rick Burns, presents American Ballet Theatre, A History, delving into the rich story of this quintessentially American classical ballet company. Here's a look.
American Ballet Theatre, A History, a co-production between PBS series American Masters and filmmaker Rick Burns.
I think what film can bring to dance is an act of attention that in essence, whether it is literally slowing it down in super slow motion, so we have this footage using a Phantom Flex camera which shoots at 1500 to 2500 frames a second, that takes 10 seconds and turns it into 10 minutes. Literally slowing it down or figuratively slowing it down. Somebody who has internalized it and can think and feel and articulate, put into words provisionally what's going on for a dancer, for a choreographer, in a piece, in the history of ballet. So whether it's Kevin McKenzie, their incredible artistic director, or somebody from outside the company entirely, like a wonderful dance historian, Jennifer Homans, they're in essence slowing it down so that we can think and feel at a slightly more dilated pace. And what you realize is what you would feel if it were going at normal speed. This is a form which, however much you think it's like playing to a kind of a tutu crowd or it's elitist, this is the most primal human form of expression. Before we talked, we gestured to communicate. And what these dancers are doing, however much it seems to be in this codified, ritualized form, is they're using the language of the human soul that's been inside bodies trying to communicate. Deep feelings, love, hate, despair, anguish, what it is to be a human being. And while it can always be trivialized, or it can be done in a cartoonish way, or in a way that just doesn't, that leaves an audience cold, when dance works, when ballet works, there's not a human being in the world who wouldn't respond to it.
It's a history both of ballet, the art form, this company, which is the American Ballet Company, and it's designated as such by our government. It tours the world, and it's diverse. It's extraordinary. It represents us as Americans.
American Ballet Theatre is the oldest American company, but very, very young as companies go, and I think it's going to remain youthful. I just found it's the art films I've had the good fortune of being able to work on are sort of the most humbling, because they're the ones where you just realize, man, nobody's doing it for the money.
When you go to the theater or you see a movie or you read a book that profoundly stays with you, and everybody has at least one of those experiences in their life, you don't have to know why. It just represents that that is a form of communication through art that touches to the very soul of what we as human beings and a society are capable of.
Powerful filmmaking, but that comes as no surprise, considering that Rick Burns is younger brother to Ken Burns.
We're close in age. Ken's a year and a half older than I am, and we shared kind of garden variety dysfunctional childhood. So we kind of had ourselves more than anybody else. And like everybody, I think we brought a fair amount of pain and damage out of our childhood. And I didn't think I was going to be a filmmaker until I watched Ken. So I basically just went into his business. That's what I did. I'm the little brother. So, it was like, if he played Civil War, I played Civil War. Always the rebel, never the Union cause. But that's because I was a younger brother. And I'm so grateful to him for having showed the way, because I don't know, he kind of showed himself the way. And I thought I was going to be a professor of English for a long time, and I still love all that kind of stuff. But the power of what film can be, and it's nothing if not humbling, because you don't, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time, and to make 30 seconds of film that actually will cause somebody voluntarily to stop other things they're doing and look and attend to it, as long as I stay in the business, it doesn't get any easier. And I think there's something deeply, deeply magnetic about looking into people who work in the arts. Like, what the hell are they doing? Why go to that kind of trouble? Look how much it costs them. Careers are very often short in dance, very often miserable in literature. what is it that people are doing when they're making art? And I found them the most satisfying films to work on.
We're leaving New York now, headed up to Massachusetts, where Boston's Rose Kennedy Greenway is nurturing a fresh vision for public art. Its public spaces make room for a soaring sculpture by artist Janet Echleman that, for the moment, is redefining the Boston skyline.
It's a dream, really. The response has been overwhelming.
This is artist Janet Echleman beneath a sculpture she spent more than 2 years creating. Spanning 600 feet at its longest stretch and roughly half an acre, it soars and breathes above the Rose Kennedy Greenway. Its orange, purple, and green hues glinting in the sunlight like a translucent deep-sea creature. But this is a piece about a neighborhood.
For me, it was about how to connect the city back to its waterfront.
For 50 years, an elevated highway ran like a gash right through downtown Boston, the central artery, severing one part of the city from the rest. But when the Big Dig brought it down, the Greenway sprang up and a land of opportunity was born.
I started looking at each of the buildings along the Greenway. My first idea was I used to, as a kid, with a piece of string, play this cat's cradle where you'd link the twine together, and my thought was that when the Big Dig allowed for the highway to be removed, there was this volume of airspace, and I just wanted to make a cat's cradle across it.
A one-time painter turned sculptor, the Brookline artist has created installations across the planet, working with a team of engineers, architects, and designers. Fiber is her medium, and history is often her prologue.
Right where we're standing here, this was the middle of Boston Harbor. The city cut down 3 mountains to fill in this water to make this land. And those 3 mountains are these open spaces inside my sculpture.
After it was assembled over 10 hours early one Sunday morning, Echleman titled the sculpture, "As If It Were Already Here." Suddenly, the piece with its 100 miles of rope linked by more than 500,000 knots became part of the city's own fabric.
I was so nervous. I wanted to crawl under a rock the morning they were taking it up, I was so scared it wouldn't be right. And for me, it's personally rewarding to see it shared, to see people excited, taking photos and sharing them. The whole creative inspiration of others is something I hadn't expected.
But for the Greenway, it's all according to plan.
We've been kind of calling it internally our coming out piece for public art.
Last fall, the Greenway named Lucas Cowan its first and only curator of public art.
Lucas, what's the role of public art in a very open space like this?
I think there's multiple roles. I think one of the biggest roles is actually to change the perceptions of the city in which we all live in.
Art has been a slow brew on the 1.5-mile-long Greenway. Its most vibrant presence has been the Dewey Square mural, which changes annually. The Greenway is developing a 5-year public art plan, but Cowan says that includes no permanent pieces.
It's not so much based around the museum concept of hanging a painting on a wall. It's how you and the public can interact. Public art is meant to be touched, it's meant to be felt, it's meant to be experienced.
Next month, on the park's Chinatown parcel, the Greenway unveils a new installation based on the Chinese zodiac signs.
So this year is actually the year of the sheep. So we've actually commissioned an artist from New York that is going to be bringing I think up to 10 different types of sheep made out of paper that are coated and made sure that they are weather resistant. They're going to be placed on different platforms which you can walk under and enjoy.
You've made it part of your mission to not take art so seriously all the time.
Exactly. It doesn't need to be. Sometimes you just want to take a picture in front of it and laugh at it and send it to your mom. It's like, Mom, I'm with the sheep.
Cowan's pedigree includes 8 years with Millennium Park in Chicago, arguably one of the shiniest cities for public art in the country, with works that are now landmarks in their own right.
Are we going to get there? Are we going to be Chicago?
It takes time. Chicago's public art program has been around since like 1968. So Boston's public art program has been around, but it hasn't been fully around. So I would say give us a couple years, give us 10 years, and I think we can somewhat get there.
With the Echleman sculpture, it's now off to a thunderous start, even if the floating is fleeting. The piece comes down in October.
It's like the cherry blossoms. They are more beautiful because we know they're only here for a moment.
You can find out more by visiting rosekennedygreenway.org. And we're coming home now for our Louisiana Treasures segment. A trip to the Biedenhahn Bible Museum in Monroe not only offers an opportunity to scan some of the oldest Bibles in the world, it also gives visitors a chance to see a very impressive statue of the biblical Moses. Let's take a look.
Emmylou Biedenhahn started the Bible Museum, and it really dates back to, she had a singing career in Europe in the 1930s. And that was made possible really because of her father being the first person to bottle Coca-Cola. So he had the money, the wealth to send her to Europe. And when she returned, one of the gifts that he gave her was a Bible. And from that Bible, she began collecting other Bibles, and she just eventually opened the museum to display what she had. We have an incredible collection. We've got a page from a Gutenberg Bible, which is the first book of any type ever printed with movable type. We've got an Armenian manuscript that dates back to 1121. And then our oldest bound Bible dates back to 1523. And we just have examples of the first and second Bible printed in the United States. The first Bible translated by a woman. And so I think when people come through, they get a good history of the printing of the Bible and translations of the Bible. I think they always walk out a little surprised that in Monroe, Louisiana, they encountered a collection that's this great. Behind me is a bronze of Moses, a bronze statue of Moses. It's by an American artist named Gibb Singleton. It's a fantastic statue. I mean, you get so much movement and feeling of Moses on the mountain with the Ten Commandments. Singleton specialized in Christian art, but also in Western art, and you can see some of his other pieces you can see the Western influence in those. He actually in the 1970s, when the Pietà was damaged in the Vatican, Gibb Singleton was the person that was called in to repair it. And my joke on that is always, if the Pope calls you to fix a Michelangelo statue, you're an impressive sculptor. I mean, they don't just call the guy down the street to do that.
Going now to Ithaca, New York, where painter Brian Keeler combines bold brushstrokes, bright colors, and close observation of nature to capture the dramatic effects of light on the Susquehanna River Valley landscapes. Come into Keeler's studio for an introduction to his many colorful collections.
I'm Brian Keeler. I'm a painter, and I live in Ithaca, New York. My art is in that tradition of realistic painting. I call it painterly realism because you can see the effects of the process in the brushworks. I guess I started drawing first, like many people do. I started in grade school and started sketching. In high school, I started doing portraits, and then between semesters at art school, I did sketches at the Boardwalk in Wildwood, New Jersey. And since then, I've been doing portraits through most of my career. I did a lot of official portraits of judges in Scranton and Wilkes-Barre for the courthouse. I do both a variety of subjects or genres. I paint landscapes, still lifes, figures, and allegorical works. And the choice is kind of a combination of things all coming together, coalescing into one. The light, the composition, the topography, or if it's a figure or a portrait, the way the figures pose. But oftentimes the unifying theme is the light. It's the quality of light and the way the light plays on it, and the interplay of shadows and light. I have some art in several public collections. One of them is in the Everhart Museum. They have a couple of my paintings in their permanent collection. And I've also done commissions for corporations. One of them is an insurance company, TW Insurance Company in Wyalusing, where I did a large mural illustrating the history of their company. And the most recent one was about 5 or 6 years ago. I did this large mural for a casino near Stroudsburg in Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania, Mount Airy Lodge. It was a 9-panel painting. It's called a polyptych, and I did this painting of the Susquehanna River near Wyalusing. It's kind of a large panorama at sunset with a lot of violets and golds. I've been teaching in various capacities over the years. I teach landscape and figure painting in 2 beautiful places in Italy, and we travel around to various other places. So it combines Renaissance art history, and it's a great place to study and to paint because you're immersed in the epicenter of the Renaissance where we teach. People just would contact me, email me, or telephone me to let me know that they're interested. Each year we have people come that are brand new to painting. They're a tabula rasa, blank slate, so it's open to all levels, and there's professional artists that come too, and I'm very honored to have people that have been painting their whole life that come. Making something from scratch is very fulfilling and rewarding, especially the plein air part, which is plein air is a French word that means painting out of doors, and that's a very important part of my process is to paint on location so I can see what I'm looking at and experience nature firsthand and be part of the scene that I'm looking at. I just like to represent the world that I see rather than art for art's sake. So it's kind of a combination of expressing something intimately about what I see and experience, and with the design elements combined in it at the same time.
That's going to do it for this edition of Art Rocks. But remember, you can always watch episodes of the show at lpb.org/artrocks. And for even more coverage of our state's unique arts and culture, Country Roads magazine is a great source for finding out what's going on across Louisiana. Until next week, I'm James Fox Smith, and thank you for watching.